Hey everyone, been out of pocket for a while. Came down with the old allergy sinus infection type thing that everybody seems to go through about this time of year. So hopefully I can get through this video without choking or coughing to death in front of you. While I was out and away, I decided to do some bug bounty. And one of the cool vulnerabilities that I found was kind of an arbitrary file upload combined with remote code execution via command injection type thing. Really weird, unique scenario that I've never run into, probably won't ever run into again. But it had me thinking command injection would be a cool next topic to cover here on the channel, doing kind of what I did previously with using PortSwigger to demonstrate the vulnerability, and then using Let's Defend to investigate the vulnerability. That way we can see it from both sides and then talk about how do you fix this. So we're going to talk about command injection vulnerabilities today. Get ready. Here we go. Here we are in PortSwigger's Academy. I love PortSwigger Academy. One of the best free resources out there for web application pen testing content, whether you're a regular pen tester, or you're in the bug bounty space, or you're just curious about this, period. It's one of the best free resources, better than most paid free, resources out there. So here on the OS command injection page, gives you an overview of what OS command injection is. I'm just going to keep it simple. Essentially, an attacker can inject an operating system command that will be executed inside the context of the service account that a web application is running as. So say you have an Apache web server and you've got an application running under the context of www-data, which is most of the time what you have a web application running as. With that, if I can ls a directory, or if I can cat a file, or say I do a netcat reverse shell, I'm going to get that shell back as www-data, or I'm going to be able to list the contents of directories that www-data has the permissions to do. I am basically running commands as that user. Now, there are instances where something is running with elevated permissions. Maybe it's running as root. Maybe it's running with administrative permissions or as system on a Windows system. You never know what you're going to run into. That's why OS command injection can be so deadly when you find it. It's a really cool vulnerability to find, but it's honestly a scary one. It's also one that's pretty easy to avoid. At the end of the day, the real key is not allowing just arbitrary user input to get included in something that's executing commands on the server, whether that be, you're using a wrong function inside of the programming language that you're using, or you're directly including user input into an operating system command. However that's occurring, there's generally an API or a library that will do that for you in a much safer fashion. At the end of the day, that's really how you avoid these things. So let's hop on in. I've got one of the labs opened up here. So let's view details on one of these. Let's check the stock in Paris at 55 units. Let's hop into our history on Burp Suite. And we can see this post request here. So we're going to go ahead and send that to repeater. And we're going to start looking to see if we can include some sort of command. So what we'd be doing here is we're sending a post request to product and stock, the product stock function within the product directory. We're going to use the product ID equals 2, and then we're going to pipe the who am I command in addition to that, and then we're going to leave the store ID as 2 alone, just to see which of these parameters might be vulnerable. And ideally, what would happen is it's going to look up the product ID, and then it's also going to run who am I. Okay. So who am I, extra operand 2, unbound variable. Okay. So we got something cool there. Let's try. Let's see if store ID has anything come back off it. Yep. Okay. There we go. So we are Peter. So let's ls. Now we can see that we're inside of that stock report.sh, so that's the function. Let's do cat stock space there, stock report.sh. And so now we can see what exactly is happening there. It's taking that value that we're providing through the arguments, and we're basically escaping that and adding our who am I or our command, whatever it is that we're trying to do, cat this file, and then it's finishing off this command here. So that is how we're getting our stock. It is also how we're injecting commands into the system running as bash. And under the context of Peter, who is apparently the service account operator for this product, lookup catalog tool thingy, whatever it is. So that is an example of OS command injection. What we could also do is like which Python to see if Python's on the system. It's not. Do like which Python 3. So you can see that there's Python 3 on there. So now you could call Python 3, get a reverse shell using one of the Python reverse shell payloads. You could also do that with like which NC. So let's see which netcat. It's not on there. Check like awk. You can do it with awk. So basically we're enumerating this remote system using command injection so we can see what's available to us to be able to pull that back on our end. Another thing we could do is we could do ls home, and we can see what users are on the system. So we know Peter is the one that we're running as, so we should have permissions inside of Peter's directory, his home directory. Let's see if he has an SSH key. Does not have anything in his .ssh folder. What's in his home directory? Stock reports. So that's probably where this web server is running out of, or this, at least this portion of this web application where they're doing stock lookups. So, you know, that is from an attacker's perspective. This is command injection in a nutshell. Okay, so here we are inside of Let's Defend. I have a couple different command injection vulnerabilities or investigations pulled up in the channel here. I think we're just going to go ahead and do the who am I one. So go ahead and create a case. Back to that page and look at the details. Okay, so the alarm rule is SOC 168, who am I, command detected in request body. The host name is web server 1004. We have our destination IP address, which is the corresponding IP address to web server 1004. We have a source IP address. We'll probably look at that in VirusTotal, probably take a look inside of log management for that as well. The request method is a post method. URL is the video directory or function. And then it was allowed. So that's about all we have here in terms of information. Let's start with this IP address and let's go to log management. So we have our source IP. We go into filters, source address, and here we can see a number of firewall events. So looking at this first one, we see, so there's a parameter C with equals who am I attached to this post request for the /video. It was permitted. It's got a 200 response code, meaning okay, meaning the server successfully parsed it. There was no error. There was no unauthorized, anything like that. And the response size is 912 bytes. Looking at the next one, we see that they did an LS. Again, got a 200 response code. The response size is different. So now we have a 1021-bit or byte response size. To me, that indicates that the results were different. Being that we're having a success code 200 and we're getting different response sizes, that indicates to me that the output from the server is different. So that would make sense, right? Like if you're in your terminal and you do a who am I command versus an ls command, the results are going to be much different in size. If you do who am I, it might say your root. If you ls, you may have 10, 15 files and directories inside of the directory that you're currently in. So the response sizes are going to be different. If this pattern continues, which it does, uname 910, cat Etsy password, quite a bit different size and response size. So what that indicates to me is that we have a successful attack here. And again, cat Etsy shadow, much bigger response size, which would be horrible if Etsy shadow got out. So let's go to virus total and let's search at IP address. Comes back as malicious. It's part of the ASN from ChinaNet. Details. We have who is information here. Here's some Google search results. Hey, look, SOC 168, InfoSec write-ups. Okay. In the community, marking it for SSH brute force attacks. So it's definitely a malicious IP address. No questions about that. We could go into endpoint security. We could find that web server 1004. Primary user is webadmin3. It's inside the let's defend.local domain. Looks like it's running an x64 system. Browser history doesn't look like anything cool, crazy. Command history. So they deployed a Docker container, and here we can see those commands that we just saw inside of the logs. ls, who am I, uname, cat Etsy password, cat Etsy shadow. So they were definitely being parsed. There's no question about that. Active network connections, don't see anything back to that malicious server. So that is good. Let's see, those are all on 8.2. When was this at? 2/28, so February 28th. Okay, so I don't think the commands here correspond to the network connections. They appear to be correlated to the Docker work that was going on. So what I was looking at there was to see if these timestamps here with these network connections had any corresponding dates and timestamps to what was going on in the command history. Obviously, in the command history, we can see they didn't open like a reverse shell or anything. But if they had and somehow cleaned up command history or something like that, maybe we would see a network connection back to a malicious IP or one of those IP addresses that's new. Maybe that's their C2 command and control infrastructure, and we need to investigate that as well. Process list. We see all the ones that we've already seen here. Nothing really too bad there. I already had this on containment, but we would go ahead and mark it for containment if you needed to. So go ahead and mark that for containment if you're following along. Inside email security or threat intel, I don't really think we need to look this up. We know from virus total that this is a malicious IP address. It's very clearly command injection coming from what appears to be China. Not going to bother looking to see if this was like a planned test or anything like that. So let's go to the playbook. Understand why the alert was triggered. We do after going through the PortSwigger Academy command injection exercise. We should have a fundamental understanding of what was going on here. We've collected all this data here. We've looked at the web traffic. So is it malicious? Yes, we're going to say it's malicious traffic. We're going to say that the attack type is command injection. Was this a planned test? Again, I didn't bother looking, but I'm going to go with my gut instinct and say not planned. If you're a real SOC analyst, you should probably check that, but going with not planned here. What is the direction of the traffic? Source to destination. So is it company network to company network? No. Is it company network to internet? Again, no. It is internet to company network. So from the Chinese address to our local company network. Was the attack successful? So again, here we're looking at the HTTP response code being 200, meaning the server parsed it successfully, returned a successful OK error, not error code, but response code, and that the size of the response was changing based off of the command. That leads me to believe, yes, 100% successful. So was it successful? Yes. Containment, we did an endpoint containment. For artifacts, the only artifact we really have is this malicious IP address, China. There's no URL, there's no email domain, no MD5 hashes, it's really just that IP. So we'll add that there. Do we need to escalate to tier 2? Yeah. We know the attack succeeds. We don't know what to do after that. We need to basically start a digital forensics investigation. So we've detected it at the SOC level. Now it's time for IR, for digital forensics, to step in and do their part, figure out how far did this go, how did this start, has it happened before, that type of thing, and follow up on that with the system owner, and then close the loop on that. So we're going to escalate to tier 2. We add our comments, blah, blah, blah. We've finished the playbook. All right, so now we can go ahead and close this one. We're going to say it's a true positive, and we're going to put our note in there. Close alert. Bow. So closed alerts. Let's see. SOC 168, who am I command detected in request body. True positive, plus 5 points. Did we need to escalate to tier 2? Yes, plus 5 points. Was the attack successful? Yes, plus points. What was the direction of the traffic? So we determined that it was internet to internal to the company. Was the test planned? We went with our gut on that one. Really should have checked the email security. Like I said, if you want to be thorough, do that. But was it a planned test? No, it wasn't. It was malicious. What is the attack type? Command injection. And was the traffic malicious? Yes. So we should have got full points on that if you followed along. And that's it. So that is command injection from beginning to end. Minus the whole deeper part with tier 2. But hopefully you learned something. I know I did. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.